Hello! It is I again, the Crypto Otaku, here to get the show on the road. Welcome, welcome. I thought I'd do a little something different today. Mostly because I started watching the Tom Bilyeu video about the debate between gold and Bitcoin. Peter Schiff and Paul Powell, respectively. Man, it was great. I got through about 2 hours and then didn't have much time to finish. So I thought, what better way than to bring it onto the show. Might as well finish it up here. I also got a whole bunch of snippets I clipped from it. We can kind of go over and review. If you want a quick synopsis within maybe an hour, we may have a show for you. All right, so let's get started with today's TA. If you like what you see here, please like and subscribe, do all the things down below. Put me on the chart, get me on the algorithms, picking me up. Let's get into it. All right, so Bitcoin. Actually, Bitcoin is developing, looks like a Adam and Eve bullish pattern here. Actually, let's quickly review that. I always like looking into patterns that used to make sense with trading pairs and stuff. But yeah, this is a whole new world now. The ETFs are just kind of in play. But Adam and Eve. Oh, let's just kind of pull up a quick little review, quick chart. Boom, we have an Adam and Eve pattern. This is what we're looking at. I'm not the best trader, but I do pick up these patterns from time to time. And yeah, it looks like we are going to be moving up unless the forces that be push us down. So yeah, that's what I see right now in the charts of Bitcoin. Yeah, she's definitely gonna get fed tonight because yeah, looks like we're about to blow up. Boom. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff to be bullish about. So we had the CPI data come out today. Let's dive into that real quick. And we had a quick article to read off of on that. What in the world is going on here? Jesus. Just jumping all over the place. Bitcoin drops 4.3 thousand as CPI data comes in hotter than expected. Markets react stubbornly high inflation in the United States has a potential impact on the Fed interest rates plans. Yeah, we had a bit of a correction today as the CPI came in a little hotter than expected. Is it gonna matter? If we all know what the main attraction is here, and that's the dollar coming to a screeching halt. Complete downfall of the civilization as you know it, and fire and brimstone and dystopian future. Here we come. Some would argue we say we're already here. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Nothing's changed. Nothing new to see here. Although a few days ago, I think it was last Friday, this kind of went over my radar. A man by the name of David Schwitzkirk, I'm butchering that. Forbes covered this. Speaks out on the House floor. And I thought I'd share just a quick little snippet of this. It was entertaining, at least.
And that's right off the Treasury's website. So let's actually walk through reality and try to understand. My personal theory is we do lots of crazy conversations around here because we're desperate to avoid telling the public or even ourselves the truth. Every single dollar you and I, as members of Congress, vote on is borrowed. Every single dollar we vote on is borrowed.
Damn!
The way we're going this year, every single dollar we vote on is borrowed, plus $8, $9, maybe $1 trillion of Medicare. will be borrowed. And we don't get to vote on that. That's on autopilot. So my point is trying to understand how much. Now, this number is no longer about 73%. We think it's actually approaching 75% will be on mandatory because of the growth of interest. Let me hand that to you. So we made this board a couple days ago, and then it popped. So it wasn't $93,000, it was almost $95,000 a second.
That's what a house used to cost. Perspective. Before COVID. On the low to median range houses used to cost about that. Per second!
I didn't want to waste the ink and print a new one. Why do the second? Because it's understandable. I mean, let's be brutally honest. How many of us can see 12 zeros in our head? And my fear is that is one of my great sins in trying to communicate my stress about this, is I'm here saying, it's $1 trillion. No one knows what the hell $1 trillion is. It's 12 zeros. But when every second we borrow more, substantially more than the average wage of Americans, maybe that hits home. So let's actually sort of walk through what's going on, and then my sarcasm here is going to be my anger at myself, my brothers and sisters here, particularly on the left, but also on the right. We've been debating and fighting over things that don't even qualify as a day's borrowing. We bring this place to its knees. We remove a speaker. We do this and that. And then you realize the amount of dollars being fought over only equal a couple days worth of borrowing. But darn it, it got us on television.
This is insane. But yeah, I thought I'd share a snippet of that. It was very entertaining to watch. I just found it on a whim. Completely flew over my head on Friday, but apparently that was an entire hearing. Yeah, if you want to watch this, happened March 5th. He basically just crumbles down on on our lawmakers, because that's what they do. They're just blowing through our money and borrowing off of future generations. Remember Jerome Powell? Yes, you remember. So yeah, that's going on as well, day after day after day. Yeah, there's just so much to unpack. Don't forget the Bitcoin halving is in 3 hours, 51 minutes, and 14 seconds until the 420 blaze it. Bitcoin halving, and it is coming up fast every damn day. It's it's like a little over a month now, and I mean, and the estimates are even sooner than that. So we just use April 20th because it is, of course, the holy high day, right? But yeah, that's coming. It's coming fast. Bitcoin rainbow chart. We are already past still cheap. Just a reminder. Stay hodling. Crypto bubbles. We are up, and up. Everything's pretty much in the green in the last hour. Everything's recovered over the day, onto the hour. Yeah, it's we're still up on the week, still up on the month, on the year. Everything's coming in good. Look at that. Freaking Render is up 150% on the month. Pepe's up 700% on the month. With Dog with Hat is up 580. Loki's 780. I mean, this is ridiculous. These meme coins. Fetch AI is 300%. What is this one here? WorldCoin. Ugh. Don't get me started with WorldCoin. Don't want to talk about WorldCoin. Yeah, we are still up. Crypto's still up. There's no need to be bearish on a mediocre day, right? We're at all-time highs. Let's just stay high. My God. Yeah, coin market cap still going up. Avalanche finally broke back into the 10th spot, which is nice to see. Something with utility back up there. Cardano's on the move as well. Cardano's probably going to be $1 here soon. I mean, we're getting there. We're getting close. It's nice to see. Bags are pumping all around, right? Everyone who believes in these projects, you're doing good. You just keep up the good work and hodl strong. Alrighty. So, main event, right? I'm gonna dive into this. So, just a quick recap. I watched the first 2 hours of this. long debate between Raoul Pal and Peter Schiff. Love him or hate him, Peter Schiff makes a few good points. Not many. Not many in our space, especially. Very hypocritical. Very narcissistic. You just want to punch him. But he makes a few good points, mainly as to, why this is such a belief system. Again, going back to gold, against gold. Why is gold a good belief system? Since it only has 10% of its intrinsic value in manufacturing. Yeah, there's a lot of good points to be made, but for the most part, it's a snooze fest with Peter Schiff. After other than him getting completely just making a fool of himself. He did say some fun things, though. I'll just kind of make a quick few highlights. It was entertaining, entertaining to say the least. Very hypocritical about tokenizing gold, which was funny.
It's not like I'm anti-crypto or I don't see value in crypto. It depends on what you're talking about. So if you're talking about blockchain, if you're talking about the potential to use a cryptocurrency actually as a medium of exchange and a unit of account, which would mean it would be tied to something with value, a stable coin. Obviously, if you tie it to something like the dollar or the euro, you don't have the real long-term store value. You don't have an inflation hedge, but you do have a medium of exchange. You have a unit of account. I think the ideal marriage is between gold and blockchain. If you tokenize gold and put it on a blockchain,
yeah, that was really interesting for him to just jump right into that. And then, Raoul Pal came back with this something really snarky too, which was really great because I was thinking the same thing while he was going on this whole rant.
Well, we kind of have a tokenized gold and it fucks everything up. It's called the futures market.
Yeah, it's exactly paper gold, the futures market, paper anything, right? The futures market in general. Remember when we had future Bitcoin? Remember what that did? Before the spot Bitcoin ETFs? Remember what that did? Yeah. It did nothing because everyone's just borrowing on the back of promises. And it can be easily manipulated. Tokenized gold can still be easily manipulated. So yeah, it's just silly. Just absolutely silly. And then just kind of going back and forth, Peter Schiff going into, how gold's been the best store of value and wealth. What in the world's going on? Everything's... What the heck? I lost one of my monitors. But yeah, just kind of going into the... store of wealth, right? That aspect of it.
but the majority of the people who own Bitcoin are not making a lot of money in Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin, yeah, it's back up to 60,000, but it was at 60,000 3 years ago. It's had a roller coaster. It went down below 20,000. Now it's back up. It's kind of been moving sideways over the last few years. So it hasn't, done anything as far as kept up with inflation over that time period. Yeah, if you bought it a year ago after it dropped and you sell it now, you have a good trade. But if you rode it all the way down and all the way back up, you haven't made anything. And of course, if you don't sell it and it goes right back down, and there's no way to know, let's say Bitcoin collapses again from the 60,000 level, just like it did a few years ago, it may not stop at 19,000. What if it goes to 10,000 or 5,000? Who the hell knows how low the next drop is going to be, and maybe
Paper itself, it destroys. Copper over time destroys. Silver over time erodes, but gold doesn't. So gold has this long-term value. In a digital world, those properties have been mimicked, but even honed down to a way that everything is knowable. In gold, well, when the price is high enough, the gold price becomes cyclical because the miners will find new ways of getting gold out of the ground. And so supply adjusts and brings down price, which is fine. In Bitcoin, you can't do it. So it's really a function of demand in everything in Bitcoin. So it's the function of how many people believe this to be true, that this asset has value. And when you go back and say, Well, people shouldn't do this. Nobody has the right to tell people what they should or should not do. This is the best performing asset the world has ever seen. It is up 6 million%. Since we first put it on Real Vision in 2014, it's up 380,000%.
Wow. You know, if Bitcoin is 1,000 10 years from now, you could still make the argument it's the best performing asset in the world if you want to start from that point in time. So it doesn't matter. The people didn't own it when it was pennies.
That's a little bit disingenuous because it actually is the best performing asset in the world on a 10-year, 5-year, 4-year, 3-year, 2-year, 1-year basis.
Well, it can't be on a 3-year basis because it's about unchanged. Right? It was over. It's all.
He goes into also.
But in 100 years, will anybody even remember what Bitcoin was? I mean, most people probably won't know about it. I mean, how many people even know about, Tulip Mania or stuff like that happened in the past, or Beanie Babies? I mean, these things are like fads. They come and they go. I mean, some people may study it if they study history. But to think that in 100 years, anyone's even going to be thinking about Bitcoin.
What gives you the confidence to say you're so sure? What would make you say, you know what, I don't know, this is interesting, because it's obviously people like it. It attracts a lot of investors, a lot of smart people. If you go and see Dan Moorhead or Dan Tapiero, do you say, listen guys, you guys are morons. You're just believing in... You wouldn't say that. You wouldn't.
Well, look, there are a lot of people on Wall Street have done foolish things in my lifetime, whether it was .coms, subprime mortgages. I mean, people were doing a lot of foolish things with their money and they lost it. Quacking. And that's what Wall Street does. It's like whatever the public wants, they supply it and they take a fee to make it so that people can trade. They don't care. They're operating casinos. They're making money. But what you is wrong. But there's a slim chance that you're right. I mean, you're betting on a long shot. The odds are it's not going to work, right? So it's a real long shot that this project is actually going to succeed, right?
Would you be less concerned about the whole thing if gold had actually gone up?
No, I mean, look, gold has gone up.
Gold mining, for example, gold mining equities have gone nowhere in 45 years.
Well, gold mining equities are not gold. Gold mining equities are not gold. So gold in the last 100 years has gone up 100-fold. So the dollar has lost 99% of its value. And even if you go back to the year 2000, gold has gone from under 300 to over 2,000 in the last 20 years. So it's just that during the last 10, 11 years where Bitcoin has been on the scene, gold has been very stable, while Bitcoin has gone way up. That's in your reference.
Let's assume you were less fixed on your view, and you saw this new thing and saw that people also thought of it in the same kind of way that people thought about gold. And doesn't it make you go, that's fascinating. I wonder if this really could work in a digital age. But instead, you'll say, no chance, they shouldn't buy it, they're all idiots. What makes you so sure? Like, I would never say about gold, that's stupid. I would say, I understand it. Of course gold is interesting. But
he's pretty much calling him out, too, with all the Twitter posts, all the attacks on Michael Saylor and everyone else in the space. I mean, Peter Schiff has been just a tyrant in the background of all this for years. He just kind of goes on a rant again, and Rob Paul is on the defensive and attacks him. Another really fun thing is, I'm going to kind of skip around here a bit more, but towards the end, basically, he gets nowhere with Peter Schiff in even acknowledging the true potential of Bitcoin and crypto assets in general, other than just being attached to gold somehow, that he asks them this question.
If you had a time machine, you could go back in time and buy Bitcoin 10 years ago. Would you do it?
Of course. I mean, I'm not an idiot. Well, first of all, if I had a time machine, I could do a lot of things. I'd be the. But of course, look, yes. Do I regret? I mean, I remember when I was sitting at my desk, my studio in Connecticut, in Weston. And a guy working with me on my campaign, they were showing me Bitcoin. And the guy was like, look, just buy some. You know, what the hell? And I looked at it, and I don't remember if it was under $1 or over $1, because I can't remember. But I remember it was like 2010 when I looked at it. And I remember I thought about it. Yeah, I could throw 10 grand in it, 50 grand. I don't know. I thought about it. And I didn't do it. I was like, this is ridiculous. But what am I went away from it. But I thought about it. I thought about all the odds. And I didn't see this kind of bubble potential. I mean, I thought, yeah, maybe it could go up. But I just didn't want to deal with it. Now, obviously, do I wish I had made the decision to have thrown 10 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand into it? Sure, yeah. It'd be worth hundreds of millions, assuming I didn't sell. But again, I don't know what I would have done had I made that decision. Maybe I would have put it all on Mt. Gox and then lost it there, but I don't know, maybe some of the Mt. Gox money is coming back. I don't know what I would have done if I had bought it. But yeah, clearly, I wish I'd have bought it. But, I would, even if I had bought it, even if I would have bought it, I wouldn't have told other people to buy it. I would have had to kept quiet about it because I never believed in it. So I would have bought it just betting on other people being dumb enough to buy it and pay a higher price. Right? I wouldn't have bought it because I actually believed in it. I would have bought it because I believed other people would be foolish enough or greedy enough to buy it. So I would have had to kept it quiet. I couldn't have encouraged other people to buy. So I think publicly, I wouldn't have had a different, I would have been singing the same song. I just would have made a lot of money if I would have bought it.
So you don't think there's a remote chance you might have been more enthusiastic about it had you have bought it, been involved in the community, made some money, attended some of these conferences, saw what's going on with the technology? Could it have been a different Peter Schiff, and it could have been Schiff Crypto written on the wall there? I think there's a chance it could have been, and maybe you missed it.
Well, look, I like to think that I have integrity and that I would have had the same outlook. But is it possible that had I bought it, like so many other people did, might the fact that it went way up, might not, if I was in the bubble with you guys, maybe if I was a crypto billionaire, maybe that would distort my perception. So maybe I would be out there, just as crazed as you guys.
Peter, in what world do you think it's acceptable to insult asset holders and think that's a normal thing? That they're idiots, they can't see it, they're speculating. Why is that become an acceptable way of interaction? I don't do it to Apple shareholders.
Well, look.
It's not. So there's some sort of psychology around gold that it feels like it's being threatened, and that therefore there's an attack. There's an attack back. It's kind of strange.
I remember, I talked to a lot of people during the 1990s who were in love with various .com stocks, and they all went to zero. I talked to a lot of people who thought.
And he basically just defends his point with another rant on .com bubble and how that went to hell, and then basically just rerouting that into, well, where are we at now? What was this rant even about?
Intellectually smart, high IQ smart, that own Bitcoin. I'm not saying they're dumb. I'm just saying they're making a mistake and their judgment is being clouded by the money. Everything is going to be obvious in hindsight. See, a lot of the things that I was saying when I was warning about the housing bubble and the subprime market, a lot of the things I was saying in 2003 and 4 and 5 and 6 that were being dismissed, all of a sudden people were saying the same thing. Oh yeah, of course, yes, that's.
Peter, are house prices higher or lower than they were then? Are technology stocks higher or lower than they were?
A lot of them went to zero. It doesn't matter.
Last time I checked, the Nasdaq is up.
Yes, if you bought Amazon, if you bought, eBay, if you bought, there are some stocks that made it. But if you bought Pets.com or the Globe.com, you lost everything. There were a lot of stocks. Most of them went to zero.
You just need to own the Nasdaq. It's an index and it has the top 100 technology companies. So the bad ones get dropped out, the good ones survive. And you made an enormous amount of money by backing technology. But you're saying that people were stupid to buy technology in 1999.
No, I'm talking about individual stocks. That I'm talking about. People were they were cult-like.
You would have picked the stocks better than those people for sure, because you
I don't
saw
know,
it was all a
but remember,
bubble.
the Nasdaq went down from 5,000 to 1,000, so it went down 80%. And the only reason it didn't go down 90% was because the Fed slashed interest rates to 1%.
It's up 15,
and so you had the Fed rescue the market.
It's up 15x.
I know where it is now. It's another bubble. So let's see where the next bubble.
It's all about a bubble, Peter.
Or can
and
he
then
just...
this one's great too, because they're talking about Michael Saylor and his reoccurring buys of Bitcoin over the years at the top. And Peter Schiff basically, I mean, this is where I kind of give him a little bit of a little bit of some grace, you know, some mercy, because no one knows truly how Michael Saylor is going to get around this in the end. Bitcoin gets to the point, you know, where we are talking about millions of dollars per coin, tens of millions of dollars per coin, hundreds of $1 million per coin. Then Michael Saylor could easily sell a fraction of his Bitcoin holdings, as he's already up to over 200,000 Bitcoins for MicroStrategy in particular. So who knows where this is going to go, but as Michael Saylor says, he's going to be buying the top forever and he's never going to sell. So let's just listen to what Peter Schiff has to say about that, and then we're going to dive into stuff that I have not seen yet, just to kind of reiterate everything, catch up to a little bit of this, highlights, and then finish it up with the last hour of the reaction video for Schiff versus Raw Paul. This is such a great one too. This is probably one of the best Don Bilyeu videos I've seen. I was so excited when I saw this pop up today.
Or can he just say, I've taken the risk, it worked out, I'm going to build this new Bitcoin technology business and we can all sail off into the sunset and be happy.
But if he were to sell a bunch of Bitcoin now and pay off his debts early and deleverage the balance sheet, then you could say something. But I doubt that he's doing that. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's buying into this rally. I would not be surprised if we find out that he's bought more.
Oh, he had. I thought
he has. He just made announcements.
Yeah.
Oh, he did?
2 days ago, I think.
At these prices.
He's been buying all the way.
Yeah, well, that's part of the reason it's going up, because he keeps buying. It's like, what happens when he starts selling? We'll find where the price is.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
It's that old
his
joke, you're the
stated
Eggman.
thing is he is not going to sell.
Huh?
He has stated on multiple occasions he is not going to sell.
All right, well, yeah, okay, he has to say that. He has to say that.
We'll see. We'll see. I don't know where that goes. All right, I want to move on to where the economy is going. So,
all right. So that's kind of a quick synopsis up to where I currently am in the video, and then I'm going to continue on because I've been home for a few hours and still haven't gotten through the whole damn thing. So, quick little recap and brand new stuff that I'm going to react to right now. Again, this is Tom Bilyeu's new video, Raw Pal versus Peter Schiff, the gold versus Bitcoin debate, and the impact theory behind it. This is great stuff.
By the end of this year, the national debt will be $2 trillion per year. In 3 to 4 years, the government will pay more in interest than they collect in taxes. So we're already bigger than national defense in terms of what we pay here in the U.S. just servicing the debt. If it goes for another 20 years, somebody with my mentality is just going to get slapped around the board because I'm acting like it's going to happen soon. But is it? Like, how do we make sense of these numbers? Is there a nothing burger way out of this? Or is this a guaranteed slaughter and we just don't know when?
You are being slaughtered and you don't realize it. It all happened already. It is underway. And everybody's waiting for that. All the assets are down 90%. It can't happen. It simply can't happen because it all happened in 2008. In 2008, the world stopped. the whole debt system blew up. We had to have a debt jubilee of resetting all government debts around the world at zero so we could afford to service it. We've kept rates low. We've been then using the balance sheet of all of the central banks just to pay the interest on the debt from the previous cycles. This is this everything code thesis that you and I have talked about. So we are paying the debts by printing money, pure debasement. The system broke in 2008. We then changed the financial system with the Basel III agreements, which forced the banks to lend less and to hold more treasuries. Why? There's going to be a lot of supply of treasuries. The whole system, everybody's aware that it's broken. It broke. So what is going on now? Well, for it to actually broke, the down 90%, it's all going to be 1929 again. Can't you just see it? You're missing the point. They're debasing the currency by 15% a year. It adds up to a staggering loss of wealth. It is a tax that you don't see. 15% a year debasement is...
Yeah, and I've tried to explain this to my parents and friends and family, man. You just can't see it, like he says. You can't see it. But you definitely can feel it. And if you're paying attention, if you're watching the government spending, if you're watching the deficit grow, if you're watching the increase in prices, and you're paying attention to everything, it's right there in front of you. And Bitcoin is a complete... some people have actually debated that Bitcoin is actually just tracking inflation and maintaining its value over time with inflation. I mean, yeah, it's really interesting.
Easier than increasing your tax rate 15%, which is politically unacceptable, which is what they need to do to pay the debt. Because the printing of money just debases the currency. So you are paying it. We are all paying it.
What they should do is default on the debt. That is the best thing to do because
they
can't be repaid.
They can't, Peter. I agree.
Right, I know that.
The Austrian thing. The Austrian thing is what they should have done. It was too late, and the reason being,
they're not gonna do the right thing.
Well, they can't because the baby boom.
Maybe Bilyeu will do the right thing in Argentina at this point. We'll see.
Well, yeah, but they see the difference of the structure of the Western society is all the money's held by old people. The entire system is basically in the hands of retirees and all the wealth. So if you say all of their assets are down 75%,
wait for them all to die.
That is the wealth of the nation's gone. So nobody's going to do it.
Well, it's not all their assets, but yeah, they're debt, but they're gonna lose it through inflation either way. It's either default or debasement.
Of course.
But I wanted to point out
something that like
you talk about the national debt. Official national debt is $2 trillion. But the actual national debt, the budget deficit they claim is $2 trillion, but the national debt is already growing at $4 trillion a year. That's the rate that it's growing already.
Yep, $4 trillion a year, $1 trillion a year on interest rates alone.
It's going to be on an even greater trajectory.
So the issue is why we all agree, right? But I just don't think it can collapse. Why? Because of debasement.
But that is a collapse. That's a collapse of the monetary system. That's it, and it could lead to hyperinflation.
Yeah, let me just play out my thesis here, which is I don't disagree. You can't have assets going down 90%, the core collateral of the system, if they're debasing the currency because they go up optically because the currency is going down. The Venezuelan stock market goes up in Bolivar terms and down in dollar terms, right? So therefore, if your collateral keeps going up, which is what they learnt in 2008, is we can backstop the entire thing by debasing the currency quickly, the collateral goes up, and hey presto, my debts aren't so bad. Okay, magic. It's not magic, as you know. It's a sleight of hand. It's not pure magic. What they're doing is robbing you in a different way. Okay, this has happened before. This is exactly what happened in the 1940s and 50s. Saddled with massive debts after World War II, the large economies did the same thing. Financial repression, they had yield curve control, which is buying of government bonds, keeping interest rates low, which we've seen, and
doing the same thing again right now.
And over time, the value of the debt had eroded. And what they'd managed to do was create a productivity miracle, which drove GDP growth.
One thing you're overlooking, though, a key difference back then. So after the Second World War, and the government ran up a lot of debt during the war, but they paid for a lot of the war with tax hikes. They had tremendous tax hikes, particularly the income tax, which tripled when the war started. In fact, they introduced the withholding tax in 1942 as a victory tax. So before the Second World War, hardly anybody paid income taxes. By the end of the Second World War, a lot of people were paying income taxes. And when the war ended, the government had all of this income tax revenue coming in. And it was temporary to win the war. But when they stopped the war, they didn't stop the income tax. And so the government was flush with cash. And so it paid down a lot of that debt. Debt collapsed in the years because the government ran huge surpluses and paid down a lot of that debt. So it wasn't all just inflated away. Yeah, when the 1960s and 70s rolled around, there was a lot of inflation. But the initial big drop in debt was an honest repayment because we stopped spending money on the war. The problem now is we haven't cut any spending. We're taxing people to the hilt right now, and we don't have the type of economy. We had a real industrial economy in the 1940s. We had wealthy consumers that loaned money to the government, that bought the war bonds. We sold the war bonds to China. You know, Americans are broke. So we're a levered up country running huge trade deficits. We have no means of repaying the debt like we did in 1946. So the debt is now going to go straight up. It's not going to go down like it did during those decades. We're just getting started. It's 125%.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. We're not stopping either. I mean, $34.5 trillion in debt. We're printing $4 trillion a year on average, or with inflation, 15% a year. Dollars are losing in purchasing power. I mean, when's it gonna end? When's it gonna end? It's not. Well, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the beginning of the end. Those who are paying attention right now are witnessing it.
Of GDP, it's going to go to 150, 200%, 300%. It can't stop until everything implodes.
I don't disagree. I'm wildly, crazily bullish because I'm so bearish.
Bullish on what?
What?
Assets. Because they're going to...
in nominal terms. In nominal terms.
Correct.
But in gold terms, a lot of these assets have to come down. Their real price has to come down.
So, I also believe that GDP growth equals productivity plus population plus debt growth. I think debt growth died in 2008, and all debt growth now is servicing of old debts. And population has been shrinking. So economies have been slow and productivity is low because of aging populations. We're just bringing AI and robots into the workforce. It's infinite humans. So GDP growth.
Keep talking about that here on the channel. How AI is coming. It's coming in a big way. It's coming for you and your loved ones, and the robots too. The quick little side note here as I go into my normal rant of the day. Why you should worry about AI and crypto and be useful. The only thing I agree with Elon Musk as of today is that you should be useful. Why? Because AI is coming for you. It's coming for your job. It's coming for your friends' jobs, all your family's jobs, everyone's job, right? Telemarketers, lawyers, data entry clerks, bookkeepers, accountants, receptionists, bank tellers, travel agents, factory workers, customer service representatives, drivers, friends, especially your romantic partners, are all going to be replaced by yours truly, AI, robotics, and the latter. So that's a good segue into this next section. It looks like, yeah, look at that. Going right into it. Interesting.
Activity and population growth is what I think is on the horizon, which is what rescues this. But after what? 15% a year debasement of currency? You add 10 years of that and you've lost most of your money. So none of us disagree. We're all getting fucked. But it's how you're going to get fucked. Are you going to get fucked in one go because it all burns to the ground? or they're going to fuck you so you don't really know you're being screwed, but you're just going to get angrier and angrier. That's what we're seeing. Politics has gone like this because everybody's so bloody angry because they can't figure out who's screwing them, and they're blaming each other. What screwed them is there was too many old people, and they borrowed too much money.
What I want to understand is the timeline on all of this, because it seems like the debt is going to ratchet up so fast. And if we're only going to be able to print our way out of it, I get at first, maybe for the next 3, maybe 5 years, I don't notice that I'm being screwed over. But unless you guys tell me that the amount that we can print before we break the camel's back is 180 trillion or just some unbelievable number.
The magic number. What's the magic number?
This feels like if we're really in a race for do I get to that number of trillions of dollars before the robots come and increase productivity so much that I'm back to a 1946 place where I'm generating so much productivity I can actually pay the debt down?
I'm sure Peter won't agree with this, and you'll half agree with it and half hate it.
That's the hope, right? The hope is the AI, robots, and everything else are going to come in. They're going to do all the jobs for us. They're going to make so much growth, and I just don't see it. I don't see it because we're still going to have to pay everyone to stay at home. Still have UBI. Still have the cost of all the robots, the cost of all the drones, the cost of everything. Unless you keep everyone plugged in, like the Matrix. There's no way to get ahead from this. No way. 34 trillion, 34.5 trillion. Nuts.
He said, and that's okay. If I'm right that AI plus robots is infinite productive units, and you see how fast it's coming, you literally are not capable of understanding what an economy looks like beyond 2030. That's the problem I've got here. I'm not concerned about the cliff of death, right, that we're going through. I found an asset that I can invest in, crypto, or I could buy technology, and it's offsetting the mess of the debasement, so I'm fine. What's harder is to say, what the hell does an economy mean after 2030 when you've got endless AI and robots and AGI? What is a company? What value do you provide in that world, or I provide? We sit there talking to people about it and thinking our way through it, but both you and I are developing AI tools of which we will have a digital Tom and a digital Raoul, and we don't even need to turn up to these, and they'll do a pretty good job. We're both working on these things, right? But are we going to be just replaced? The point being is when you go to like Nick Bostrom, who is the key thinker about this at Oxford University, who wrote the book, I can't remember the famous book about the whole kind of where the future's going. There's a group there, an economics group there, who share the same concerns as me. It's like, if this is right, you could double GDP in a year, global GDP, or a week. What do companies mean when AI? I have a theory that OpenAI is using AGI to build its own AI.
Yeah, that's scary, true, and true as well. I mean, what does that even mean with the government as well? I mean, we're already at the point now in America where a lot of the crops, all the farms, I know dairy industry is completely controlled by the government. FDA approves all these things that are terrible for us, that it wouldn't pass in any other country. Yeah, it's just scary. It's scary to think where the government's going to fall into with these corporations. And again, going into the dystopian future, dystopian future that we live in, this world, yeah, who's to say that there is no separation between government and corporation? Just like in Blade Runner and all the other science fiction movies from the past. They're all going to kind of mesh together and become one. Amazon's going to become the largest government in the world's ever seen. Oh boy, it's scary.
Which is why they're iterating so fast with, 500 people? It's fucking madness what they're doing. How fast they're iterating. I've never seen anything like it. Even Elon Musk is like, I've never seen anything like what's going on here. The more we have AI to build AI, to build businesses, the faster and faster this goes.
AI to not only just build on top of each other, program itself, find cures, find cures for diseases, find like solutions for things we've never even discovered yet. I mean, literally anything. We could find new ways to mine gold, as we've commonly said here on the show, or find ways to basically eradicate the human race because we're the disease, right? We're the problem. It's never ending.
So, in answer to your question, the explosion could be the other way around. It might not be the economy imploding. It could be the economy exploding in a way that we don't even know how to deal with it. What do humans mean? What is our job? You know, all of this stuff you and I have talked about. I actually worry about very different things. I don't worry about the economy going down the toilet because I know how they're dealing with that. They've kind of set the rule book. I can make money from that. That's okay. It's this other bit. That's the hard bit. That's more scary.
What do you give the odds, Peter? One, do you think that he's onto something, or does that seem just completely sci-fi to you?
Well, I mean, I think there's no question that over time, artificial intelligence, robotics is going to lead to a dramatic increase in human productivity. I mean, that's just what capitalism does. And this is I think, a potentially game-changing innovation. The question is, how long is it going to take to build out and scale up, and and how are politicians going to react to the creative destruction, which always comes from innovation. There's always somebody that loses, but net society gains, and eventually, over time, everybody gains, because we don't want jobs. I mean, we want stuff. I mean, that is the secret of an economy. It's the scarcity of things. We all desire certain things, and the constraint is the ability to supply them. And supply is constrained by land, by labor, by capital. But AI and robotics has the potential to dramatically increase the supply of labor, intellectual, thinking and processing. And so at the end of the day, we could produce a lot more with a lot less, and we'd all be wealthier. I mean, again, work is a means to an end. You don't want your job. You want all the things that you could buy with the paycheck that you earn. If you could skip the job and go right to the stuff, most people would do it, right? Most people don't work because they like to work. They'd rather not work. They just like what they could buy with the paycheck. So, I mean, I think that all of this could be good, and it's certainly a lot of.
It's kind of funny too, because he's Michael Saylor says a similar thing as well. Devil's advocate here, about how you trade the money for the stuff. You don't really need anything but the stuff, but we transact with a monetary system for the stuff, and that is something that we can easily replace with Bitcoin. Peter Schiff isn't a terrible person. He doesn't have the worst, ideologies, or like, I just think his business gets in the way of just being a free thinker, and he's pretty negative on in the social media too. So it'd be different if you were playing a different game with that.
Potential, I'm 61 years old. I'd like to think that this AI could figure out how to do something about that. So I could be younger and live longer, and so that's another game changer. I mean, what if our life expectancy is dramatically extended too, right? I mean, maybe we don't live to 100. Maybe we live to 150. I don't know, 200. Who the hell knows? But yeah, there's a lot of things that could happen that I would be.
I personally don't think you can live an extended period of time with our food system here in America. They're basically poisoning us all. It's unfortunate. It's a huge conspiracy as well. There is a guy I want to get into at some point. I've been watching on the sidelines. This guy like siphoning blood and doing transfusions with his son for like decades now, using him basically as a blood bag. And he's basically increases vitality by like, who knows, like tens, at least a decade, but possibly 2 decades. He could be the world's longest living human. And it's something I want to get into. Maybe at the end of this show we can dive into it.
Be looking forward to. I'm not, apprehensive about these things. But I also don't think that it's necessarily, it could be, but I don't think it's necessarily a get out of jail free card for the sins of the past, that we're not going to have to deal with the debt.
Well, you'll probably all agree, Peter, that we are dealing with it now, right? We're all having the effects of this put upon us already.
Well, we're feeling it, and I've been saying for a while, that's why Biden is so unpopular. It's not because of his mental gaffes. It's because the economy sucks, and the voters know this, and they're blaming Biden because he's, at the helm of the ship that's sinking. And so despite all the hype and all the statistics, the average American family is feeling the inflation tax in a big way. And yes, there's a lot of jobs, but there's second jobs and third jobs that people would rather not have. They're struggling to make ends meet, and they hate having to take on these extra jobs. And this is going to get worse. I think the inflation genie is out of the bottle. It never was really gone. It's just that the government was able to cover up inflation by cooking the books. But the inflation is now so pernicious, and the impact on prices is so great that even when you whitewash it, with the CPI, it can't hide it anymore because the numbers are so big. The costs are rising so rapidly. People can see it. And there's a limit to how small they can make the packages. At some point, they can't keep shrinking stuff. They got to raise prices and make it even more obvious. And it's not just
He's referring to Biden's shrinkflation, right? That's what he's blaming on now. He's blaming the corporations for shrinking the products instead of increasing them. That's just fighting off the debt and the deficit and printing money and everything else. So the corporations have to fight in order to get their prices back similarly to where they were before, and it's still nowhere near what it used to be. It's just a mess.
America. It's happened in Europe. It's happened in Japan. I mean, all these countries that said for years, the problem is we don't have enough inflation. We need to create more. They now have too much inflation, and they can't stop it because stopping it would require politically unexpectable things. They have to cut government spending. They have to default on a bunch of promises. They have to deliver a lot of bad news to the voters, and nobody wants to do that. And so everybody is just going to continue. And they think, oh, we've gotten away with it before. We did QE1, we did QE2, we did QE3, we did COVID, so we can do it again, right? Look, every time we get into trouble, we just print money and we're out of trouble. Well, all that is inflation. And so if your problem is deflation or collapse of assets or whatever, and you think you can solve the problem by creating inflation, the problem is when inflation is the problem, when that's the source of everybody's misery, you can't solve the inflation problem by creating more inflation, because that's been the solution to every problem we've had, is let's create inflation. That's our solution. We can call it quantitative easing, easy money, but what we're really doing is we're solving the problem by papering it over with inflation. Well, now we're at the point where inflation is the problem. So more inflation just makes it worse. So it's, we're past the point of no return. And it's just a question of, when do we look down and realize we're standing on nothing? And I think that applies to Bitcoin too. You look down and you realize there's nothing there. There's
That's
a lot
such
of,
a low blow. It's such a low blow. I mean, come on. If we have economic collapse, and this is something they still never covered to date in this entire debate, is if we do have an economic collapse, no one's going to be taking gold to the supermarket and shaving it down at the teller. No one's going to be doing that. No one's going to be taking or that you can buy them in, like ounces or whatever. No one's going to be taking an ounce of gold and be like, okay, just give me as close as I can to this this monetized value. No, we're going to be transacting in things that we can. Everything's digital now. We can transact in digital things. I mean, we're going to have solutions pop up real quick. And I hate that people say you can't buy soda, you can't buy a coffee, you can't buy this, you can't buy that. You can totally buy all these things now with crypto. Everyone keeps saying this. I mean, Lightning Network now, you can get a card. You can spend your crypto on crypto.com. You can spend it on Coinbase. They all have cards now. If you get down to that point in time, I think you'd rather have a non-debased currency on a physical card that you can still redeem as actual currency when you need to, than something like this. And that's again something that no one's even brought up in this debate. If something were to go down like that, gold is not going to do a single thing for you or your family when it comes to buying food. I'm sorry, it's just not. That's just my 2 cents.
False perceptions that are going to meet reality in the near future.
Just as a side note, what happens, Peter, if all of these value assets that are going to catch up eventually and haven't done for the last 20 years don't? What happens if gold continues to underperform? What happens if your model of the world is outmoded? I'm not saying it is, but...
It is a very boomer way of looking at it.
Could you possibly consider that not everybody's wrong? It's just the way that you assume that everybody's wrong. I just find that a little bit...
I'm not saying everybody is wrong. I'm saying the people that believe in Bitcoin are wrong, but that's certainly not everybody.
And the market's wrong, and the technology price is wrong, and that your source of truth is the truth, and the market pricing's not the truth.
Markets get it wrong a lot. You know, in the short run, it's a voting machine. In the long run, it's a weighing machine. And right now, I think people are making bad votes. You know, and so I just think it's a mania. I mean, you know, every time there's a mania, right, it means assets are mispriced. I mean, we've had plenty of bubbles and they pop, and that's that. I just think that this is another one. So you know. I think the onus is on the people who believe in it to try to say why this is different. Of course, you know, that's the famous words of every bubble. This time it's different. I don't think it is. I think this time it's the same. I mean, you know, and so I think that the same thing is going to happen. But as far as why, you're saying why has gold not gone up? Look, in the scheme of things, when people look at a long-term chart of gold, the fact that it's gone sideways for 10 years is immaterial to the thousands of years that gold has been around, and gold has been a store of value.
But that's over the period of the worst debasement that we've seen in the last 100 years, and gold didn't do it.
Right. So let's say gold all of a sudden has a year or two where it catches up and it goes from 1,000 to 5 or 10,000, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to go there in a straight line. Gold could go up, go sideways, go up, you know. And so, yeah, over a longer period of time, it's going to smooth its way out. Now, the question is, why did gold not go up higher sooner? Well, remember, it went from 300 to almost 2,000. It had a very big move. In a relatively short historical period of time. And so then it went sideways for a decade. And the reason, I believe, is because investors have complete confidence in central banks. They don't believe that there's a threat of inflation out there or a debt bubble. And so they don't see the reason to buy gold. They would rather buy tech stocks. And so I think it's just people have a misconception. Just like, you know, you mentioned the subprime, and I remember, you know, when I first found out about these subprime mortgages, a guy showed up at my office named Andy Lottie, probably in 2005 or 6, and you know, I was already bearish on the housing market, and he came to me with an idea to set up a hedge fund to short these subprime mortgages, this tranche, and he explained it to me, and I was like, well, why the hell would anybody buy these? These are obviously going to go to zero. I mean, how can people be buying them? And they were trading above par. They were actually paying more than par to buy these tranches that I knew were going to zero. And I was like, well, you know, people just believed in this. You know? And so the assets were mispriced. And they were mispriced for a few years until they eventually were priced correctly at zero. But I knew that they were worth zero the minute they were explained to me. But you know, and what the guy told me is he had gone to a lot of institutions with the same story, and everybody laughed at him. I was like the first guy that didn't laugh at him because I knew that real estate prices were going to go down. Everybody else thought real estate prices could never fall. And so as long as real estate prices never fell, well, then it didn't matter if anything defaulted, right? I was the guy that knew that eventually real estate prices would come down. And so you can have a period of time where a lot of smart people can believe something that's wrong. And so assets can be mispriced as a result of that shared delusion. And I believe that's the situation with Bitcoin.
And what happened to me was actually the opposite, because I was the macro bear, that everything reverts to the mean, that it was all terrible, and it is all terrible. And I realized I had the wrong mental model. And the moment I actually freed myself of my own biases and tried to understand what the fuck was going on and why were these assets going up, why was this happening, I then could see what was going on and what the big game was. And as soon as I could see that, it became a game I could make money from, and that I didn't have to be stuck.
Yeah, I remember, man, it's been years since I seen that video, but he went into a bit of his past, and he was down on his luck, and he was actually investing in different currencies because his own currency was going down and compared to the dollar, so he started buying dollars. He's had a wild ride. He's seen it. He's seen it all, and end up, finding crypto. So like we all did.
Wishing, and I've seen a lot of friends of mine do this, wishing that value stocks or small caps or whatever it is are going to work for them. And it's been 20 years now, and I've realized I had the wrong mental model. And the moment I changed it, I felt liberated, because the world kind of makes sense. And I just urge all of us to just make sure that we don't get obsessed by our own mental models, because they will change. And the world changes, and sometimes we can be dead wrong, and sometimes we can be dead right. I mean, I nailed the financial crisis, I nailed the European sovereign crisis, I nailed COVID, I nailed all of these things by being a big bear. And something I suddenly realized is, yeah, but assets kept going up. That whole period I should have just been long and have made more money. And that made me ask the question of myself.
Buy the dip.
That asked the question is like that dumb meme of buy the dip. I wanted to go all the way across the bell curve, go to the middle bit, arguing it all, come to the other side and realize that buy the dip was actually the single best strategy to have ever existed over this period of financial mess. And I was stupid for not seeing it. So anyway, I'm just saying, be careful, because Tom, I can see that you're so allured by the black hole that is there. It kind of comes to you, and we have this conversation. I try and pull you back from the black hole and say, yeah, it's there, but there's an opportunity here. And you're like, but the black hole. Just be careful of the mental model, because it will massively restrict you in what you do, even how you think about life and how you interact with people around you. So it's something I've learned the hard way, is we've all got to be a little more open to A, everyone's opinions, and B, our own biases and how ingrained they are, and have they become part of our personality just because it is, or it's part of how we fear. Like, some people fear risk, so they become a certain way and present that to the world around them. Or some people have made money and then they're worried about losing it because their family didn't come from money. We're all set of our own human ridiculous biases. So we should just all, in all of these conversations, just step back a little bit.
You're looking at it from the vantage point of where we are. Everything is at record highs, and so it looks like, yes, that was the right thing to do, to buy the dip. But we haven't had the crisis yet. That's the thing. We've been able to kick the can down the road, and all of these structural problems have been growing the entire time that we've been ignoring them. And the question is, how many more times can this work? Because there.
I mean, we saw the housing crisis, and everyone ran to gold for a short period of time. I actually pulled up the chart real quick. There's gold. But then again, The gold ETFs happened shortly after 2003 as well, I think. It was pretty close to 2008 crisis when the gold ETFs came out. So it's hard to give a really good. Can't go back far enough. There we go. So gold ETFs were in 03, I think. Yep. And you can see here, 2008, a bit of a bit of a sharp incline, but not. I mean, it's pretty steady growth either way over the course of the gold ETF. But what we saw last year with Bitcoin, and we saw a little hike in gold around the same time period. It was around March of 2023. It was right around here, right there. Boom. That was when the bank started to collapse last year. The banking crisis started. That's happening again this year. And that's when the official bull run kind of started last year too, right there. And I truly believe that both are going to be important for the future if we do have economic uncertainty. But ultimately, when it comes to this generation, right? The new generation, the boomers all dying off, old money and gold. And the younger generation's not caring as much about gold as they used to. I think that Bitcoin's going to be that. I mean, going back to what Fink says on the news every day now.
That there's a lot of merit to it. There's a lot of opportunity. It is a great store, and this is where you can debate. Is it a good store?
But you know how it's made. A bunch of computers figure out
But
math
there's
problems.
but the issue is if people believe that it can be an asset that can be cross-border. Right. And let's be clear, if you're in a country where you're fearful of your government, and maybe this is one of the reasons why China has banned it. Mm-hmm. If you're in a government where if you're in a country where you're fearful of your future, fearful of your government, or you're frightened that your government is devaluing its currency by too much deficits.
Like us.
I'm not going to go there.
Go the little elephant in the room here.
Yeah. You could say this is a great potential long-term store of value. And as I said, it's like digital gold. And I believe...
But you still can't buy a slice of pizza with it. Isn't that kind of odd?
Not true.
You can't
We just covered that. You can.
Pizza with palladium or gold.
No, but there you can do stuff with them. I can get stuff with. I mean, people use gold for stuff, right?
But you could buy and sell your Bitcoin, no different than gold. So it is very.
What is it? But gold is put in like
jewelry,
and iPhones. I think there's in some electronics there's
it's
gold.
more silver. And nickel.
But you see what I'm saying? It's there are practical uses. Bitcoin, it's literally a ledger. Right?
It is a ledger, but it's an international ledger. It's cross-border.
Immutable. It's most secure network on the planet. Yada yada yada. We know. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. I personally believe it is going to be the way to maintain your wealth, the way to shield yourself from economic uncertainty. And let's see what Schiff continues to rant and rave about.
I think you gotta watch the bond market, you gotta watch the gold market, the foreign exchange market, but at some point it's going to crack.
Tom did this earlier, and it was a very good question, is what would make you think the opposite? And we all need to be able to do that. Because we can't keep saying, well, asset prices have gone up, so therefore you don't know whether you are right or wrong. It's like, and this is no attack on you or anything, it's me thinking through this stuff, is how do you know that maybe you have done yourself a disservice, or I've done myself a disservice, or Tom is doing himself a disservice by thinking the way that we do? Have we held ourselves back? Have we lost an opportunity cost that we didn't imagine because we're so anchored in what we think or we project to other people? That's all I'm trying to get across. It's not about who's right, who's wrong. I'm saying at a human level, what happens if you had bought Bitcoin and bought the NASDAQ and were 10 times richer than you are today? Would you care about some of the things you think about now? Maybe not. Tom, if you hadn't made money when you were young and then fear losing it, maybe you wouldn't be worried about the black hole. Maybe you'd be more risk-seeking. Maybe, just think about it in a bigger context than fighting over what price an asset is. We need to ask ourselves why we think that. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, the point is, as long as the underlying problems continue to get worse, I don't think I'm wrong. So if we actually find a way to solve these problems, if we get dramatic cuts in government spending, if we start paying down the debt, if we get enough deregulation.
But Peter, sorry, I just want to ask you a question.
Well, Peter, what if AI comes up with some way to create some sort of synthetic material that is even more conductive than gold? Then what? I mean, we already can manufacture diamonds. Who's to say in the future we can't manufacture a equivalent conductive substance such as gold? I mean,
what is the end, the worst case scenario game? What is the thing that you fear that we are supposed to be?
Well, the worst case scenario is we destroy the currency completely, right? And so the dollar has no value.
Okay, let's assume that happens, right? Let's say we do that, which we've been doing, but slower. But let's say it completely goes.
But it hasn't got. There's a long way to go between where we are now and zero.
Okay, so let's assume it goes to zero. I'm long crypto and technology stocks. You're long gold. They all go up. We're fine. What's the fucking problem?
Well, first of all, there's a big problem because a lot of people. First of all, maybe crypto goes up, maybe it goes down. There's no way to know.
But what?
But
explain to me what I'm fearing here myself.
When the dollar, because you're wiping out the savings of a generation, you're wiping out the retirement of
but
tens of millions of people.
I thought they were in debt. Mm-hmm. You told me they're all in debt. So we're wiping out. Yes,
you're wiping out debt, but every time you wipe out one person's debt, you wipe out somebody else's asset.
Okay.
You wipe out the value.
U.S. federal government's on an unsustainable fiscal path, and that just means that the debt is growing faster than the economy. We're borrowing from future generations.
Exactly.
Of people's
but
pensions, their insurance.
You said earlier that you wanted the big reset, that we should do this.
And when the money is worthless, you can't buy things with it. The farmer doesn't want to give up his food because you have nothing of value.
He's such a hypocrite. I mean, oh my God,
Peter. Anymore because nobody wants our dollars. I mean, if we go through hyperinflation, I mean, it's going to be riots. There's going to be. It's going to be bad. It's not like something that I'm looking forward to.
I understand. But that's why you've got your gold and your real estate, and you'll be fine. And I've got my stuff. So what are you fearing? What is the fear?
Look, and the other thing is the government can become even more oppressive than it is now. And the worst case is they blame it all on capitalism, and the solution is that we become a complete totalitarian state, and the government takes over everything. I mean, so you asked me what's the worst thing that could possibly happen, right?
Now, what is it that you fear? So you're now fearing a totalitarian state where they seize all your assets. I mean, okay. Well, what good is investing in gold, and what good is doing anything?
Oh, damn!
I don't know. I guess if they throw me in jail or kill me, I guess it's not going to matter. But I don't know what they're going to do.
Tom, what is it that you fear, Tom? What is the fear? What is that black hole?
Yeah. So as somebody who's very practiced in getting into this, I'll walk you through. So because I feel confident I will make it to the other side, sort of come hell or high water, when COVID kicked off, I realized I was afraid for people that I know and love that don't understand money. And that began my journey of actually understanding what's going on. So like Peter, I share exactly his concern. And I'm a little unclear on the only thing that makes sense for me, for you to push on this is if you think it's basically impossible for it to happen, because to me, it is self-evidently horrific to go through something where it's either a war, an external war, or an internal war, because like Peter is saying, there's just so much anger and resentment at the implosion of the debt, which, to Peter's point, is somebody's asset that now just went away. People won't do that quietly. They will riot. Also, when you get to the point...
Yeah, and remember, you can't take away your Bitcoin, right? It's non-sovereign. They can't take it. It's in your custody.
Where you can't feed your populace because there's no money, and your money's hyperinflating and people walking around with wheelbarrows full of money to try to buy a loaf of bread, that suddenly the line...
Venezuela, Argentina, happened in World War II with Germany. This is stuff that can become reality for our own country. We're not insolvent. I mean, we're not protected from this. The rest of the world can say, hey, I don't want to buy your treasury bonds anymore. We're done investing in your debt. It could be right around the corner. China already had a weird thing going on with their treasury auction. I mean, we got to dive into that at some point too. That happened a few weeks ago.
Line of good and evil that Solzhenitsyn talks about in the Gulag Archipelago, you realize it really does run through every human heart. And all of a sudden, all those narratives and mythology that you're talking about that hold us together as a society, all of those crumble. And I'm sure all three of us are students of history, but when you become a student of history, you realize that the long arc that bends towards justice is punctuated with moments of such horrible cruelty, death, and destruction that you just pray to sweet baby Jesus. You are not one of the people that are around for one of those moments of correction. And they happen, and they happen so predictably that the black hole I'm staring into, again, I don't feel like I'm staring into it for myself. And I mean, this is a glimpse into my soul. I've told the employees here, if it ever kicks off, come to the house. First of all, we have the high ground. We are up on a hill. I care about them all, and so I want to see them thrive. We will do better as a part of a collective. But the fact that I even have to say that out loud is unnerving. Now, I bend towards optimism. So I actually think nothing is ever as good or bad as you think it's going to be. And so I believe there is sort of this stumbly, slow erosion of the dollar path that will end up looking something like what happened to England. Now, Peter, when you and I last spoke, you pointed out very rightly that World War I and World War II were some pretty bad things. And so since that was part of how they end up losing their empire and status as a reserve currency, I concede the point that is absolutely horrific. So I just know every empire of all time has crumbled, and I really do think a lot about how America becomes the next Rome. But the reason that becomes a meme, and the reason that people think it's ridiculous, is because the odds of it happening in the next 2 years border on zero. The odds of it happening in the next 10 years go up a little bit. Ray Dalio puts America being in a world war at 50% over the next 10 years. But like maybe it happens in the next 20. And so if it's true that it doesn't happen for 10 or 20 years, me or Peter, and Peter, I think you know you have this reputation, and I have a feeling I'm rapidly gaining it as well, is like I've predicted 10 of the last 2 recessions, right? So I'm so focused on the confluence of things that go bad that I end up potentially missing all the opportunities that are present.
That's what I was trying to get in. I'm not saying you're right or wrong, right? I'm just saying we should think about these things. There's another bias that I want you to think about, is ask your wife if she shares the same views and her friends do, because she's British. And she won't. It's quite a uniquely American thing. Doomsday prepping, the fear of the decline of empire and the collapse of society, is weirdly an American thing. Even though the Europeans have gone through it twice, 2 world wars where we killed everybody, each other, in the most horrific ways possible, Europeans don't think of the same way of the collapse of civilization that Americans do. It's just a really weird cultural phenomena. And it's because it's the largest, most powerful economy, and it's saddled with debt and everything else. So just there's biases in everything that we do that make us, as you said rightly, Tom, we project too far either way. And it can still be pretty horrible in the middle. It can still be a terrible political environment. There still could be riots. There still could be kinetic wars. But it may not
be
have to
ready.
the end game.
Yeah, remember, the other thing that's uniquely American is the degree to which we depend on the dollar status as reserve currency to run trillion-dollar-a-year trade deficits. So, we need to be supplied goods from abroad. And if we lose those supply chains,
Very
we
good
have
point.
no ability to replace them. So it could be a major collapse. But
And our crop distribution too, absolutely would be crippled. I mean, we don't do anything in America anymore. We don't produce anything.
the other thing I
What we
wanted to
sell
say,
the best at, what we did though, what the US did was really clever, is it created a dollar debtor system where the rest of the world owes so many dollars that they can't get rid of the dollar. It's like what we exported, what the Americans exported was debt.
Oh, and inflation, debt and inflation. But, yeah, I mean,
So
there are people that think that, but I don't think that the dollar is impervious because we have so much of them and have so much debt. But the point I wanted to make about recessions is one of the problems with forecasting recessions is the government gets to define them, and the government comes out with the GDP numbers.
That is the greatest, the greatest rug pull of all time is who's going to be holding the dollars at the end of this. Oh, God. Boom.
And I think we're in a recession now. I think we've been in one for a while, but the government just doesn't acknowledge it because of the way they keep score. I don't think the deflator is honest. I think GDP is going up because of prices. I don't think it's going up because the wealth of the economy is expanding. We're just paying higher prices for things, and we're borrowing a lot of money to do it. The debt is growing faster than the GDP numbers. So all this is an illusion. We're not growing anything. We're spending ourselves into bankruptcy. We're buying products. A lot of those products are imported, and we're paying higher and higher prices. So we could have been in a perpetual depression for years and years and years.
I think we kind of have.
It's just that the way that we keep track of it, we don't officially acknowledge it.
I think, look, when you're debasing the currency and people's savings by 15% a year over time, everybody's going to feel like they're not getting ahead. Everybody feels this, right? And you're right. Somewhere hidden within all of this has been an ongoing depression from 2008 for the average person. Not for a tech company, not for certain parts of society, but most people have been in a miserable mess for a long time. Their wages haven't gone up, their costs have gone up. It's been terrible. And they're like choked with debt. They can't pay their kids to go to university. They can't afford retirement savings. Yeah, I agree. It's been bad for a long time.
Yeah, so just to gaze into the abyss a little bit further, and I'd love to get a sense where you guys think this goes. So I believe that society, that's a little overstated. I believe that culture is becoming a toxic soup. And that toxic soup is causing kids to collapse inside of themselves, eat terribly, poor diet.
That's not entirely on the kids' faults.
They are having less sex, less babies.
No one wants to put a child in this world when we know it's all gonna go to
general lack of optimism. There's a phenomenal meme that says, we'll put it up on the screen in the final cut, but it says, my parents in their 30s, and it shows, these little sketches standing outside of a house. Let's buy a house. It says me in my 30s, and it shows a guy just absolutely frazzled, and it's like your maximum bid of a $625 cheeseburger has been rejected by Wendy's. And that vibe, that meme, while funny, is real.
True.
And that really worries me a lot in terms of, I think that ultimately culture is a battle for ideas. And I think the ideas that are taking hold of people's minds are terrible. And I have a feeling that to some extent, maybe a massive extent, This is an echo of what happened in 2008. And so this becomes a question of inflation, interest rates. And so if I'm right, that this isn't like, forget the doomsday scenarios, that is just a malaise that is gripping the young, and that's going to ripple through society. I don't know how much you guys have read about the industrious revolution, but it's an idea that I find absolutely fascinating, that part of what made America great was that there was not only the industrial revolution, but there was a sense of the Protestant work ethic. I'm going to go ham. I'm going to work until I drop dead of a heart attack. And I know how silly that sounds, but like it gave birth to the America that leads in innovation, became the dominant global superpower, et cetera, et cetera. And man, as somebody who is hiring a lot of young people, I would just tell you, Jesus, like we have to filter through all of the people that just have that malaise of like, oh, companies are just taking advantage of me. Why would I run on the hamster wheel and make better widgets? It's like those ideas will cause a real problem. And when I look at, okay, so how do we solve it? One, just combating the ideas, but two, solve the underlying problem. And without solving the debt I hear you. I don't think inflation is the answer. Let me just say that. I think that you have to have a period of austerity. I think it is going to be grotesquely unpopular, but I don't see a way around that, even when you just take sort of that milk toasty, like, there's not going to be any big revolution, but we do have to make a societal change. What do you guys think about that? And if you agree,
Civil War,
what is that path?
I just say again, I just think we're using the wrong framing. We have, I mean, there's 76 million people in the United States who are over 70 years old now. Right, you've got a demographic cliff in front of your face.
Damn.
It's happening in Europe. South Korea got to a 0.7 replacement rate right now. Right, we've got a population collapse coming. Maybe those young kids are dead fucking right. They should not be doing any of this stuff because it's all worthless. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe they can see what the future is for them, which is they're going to be replaced pretty quick. The reason you don't want to hire these people is you don't need to. That's the dirty truth here, and we'll need to hire less of them. What is happening is a much larger disruption, but it's not in the way of the past. It's always so easy to say the past is going to repeat. Sure, but in different ways. There is whole revolutions happening in front of us that are
The robots are
going
coming!
to shape society in ways we can't yet understand. And we're looking back saying, well, maybe the dollar gets trashed. It's like, oh my God, can't you see what's in front of us? Now, I'm an optimist. I think there's a path that we figure it out, but I don't think it's going to be without volatility. But it's going to be driven by that, and not that. That is known.
And that is AI, robotics.
That forward is AI, robotics, longevity, so many structural changes, cracking its entire human genome and figuring out medicine, so much to deal with. That is, well, we spent too much money, we're debasing the dollar, we're going to have a hyperinflation. It's like, yeah, tell me something we don't know. Tell me something we don't understand. We don't understand that. That's scarier. Now, it could also be great. It could be amazing, a world of opportunity. But my God, it's not going to be a straightforward course, right? It's just not.
Well, first of all, unfortunately, I think inflation is the answer. I mean, it's not the correct answer. It's not the solution.
And can you, sorry, Peter, just to check something, can you... inflation versus debasement, are they the same things to you? CPI versus...
No, yeah, he's all over the damn place
tonight. I'm trying
tonight.
to make a point. He said inflation was the... Well, he didn't think inflation was the answer. I'm saying it is the answer.
He just said debasement was the answer earlier.
It's the wrong answer. It's not a solution. Unfortunately, it's the politically expedient choice, because the right choice is too difficult for politicians to make, because politicians, their primary goal is their own reelection. And so that's how they see every problem is, how do I get reelected? And so they're not trying to make things better for the country. They're trying to perpetuate their careers, which are often at odds with what's right for the country. So we're going to get stuck with inflation.
Just kick the can down the road
no
to the
matter what.
Democrats. Kick
Now,
the can down the
can
road to the
we get an
Republicans.
offset
Vice
to
versa.
that by a burst of productivity, which without the inflation would just be even better, right? Because the free market is trying to lower prices by increasing productivity. The government is raising them by creating inflation. And so it's a dance. But to the extent that we can have a huge surge in productivity that's driven by AI or robotics or a combination of the two, that's actually a good thing. That's not what you'd be afraid about when it comes to AI. I mean, if you're going to be afraid about something, the fear is that AI decides to kill us all, and it could actually do it, right? That's the supposed
It's
fear.
the future.
Not that it takes away our jobs. We don't want these jobs. We want computers to take away our jobs. That's great. Then we don't have to do them. We still get the stuff without having to do the work. I mean, every advancement has, reduced the need for human labor. I mean, if you go back to the beginning of society, everybody had a job. It was looking for food all day long. That's what you did, right? You had no leisure. You had nothing because you worked every minute of every day. I mean, other than when you slept. But as we invented things and tools, we didn't have to work as much. And so we had more leisure. Ultimately, if we could replace all human labor with machines, we're all going to have a lot more leisure. And we're all going to have a lot more stuff.
Are we going to have a system of money? Because money is like expenditure of energy, whether it's human, brain power, whatever, and in exchange for money. Right?
And ultimately, in an ideal world with complete abundance of everything, that we won't even need money. If I could just push a button and have everything I need and I wouldn't have to pay for it because it just gets conjured into existence by some super intelligence, right? I don't need money anymore. Money just facilitates trade. Somebody has something I need or I want. How do I?
You're not going to be able to just poof a yacht into existence. Then everyone on the planet would just have the entire oceans full of a wasteland of junk and yachts. I mean, you can't just poof a Ferrari and every person on the planet has Ferraris. Every other car manufacturer in existence would go out of business or just wouldn't cease to function anymore. It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, I get it. Well, I got to give them something that they need or they want. But rather than barter, we exchange a mutually
But if we're not bartering,
commodity.
if we're not bartering our own services, intelligence, physical labor, how do we earn money?
Well, how are we going to earn money in the future? We may not need to. That's my point. But obviously, between here and there, people have to find, how did somebody who got put out of business, with a shovel, a guy that was digging a ditch, and now somebody invents a shovel, and so we don't need as many ditch diggers. So what did that guy do? He did something. And so people are going to have their jobs replaced by computers or robots, and they're going to do something else, instead. I don't know all these things, like what they're going to do. But the problem might be if the government says, hey, you lost your job, so just go on welfare and here's a check. Because, that's a big problem if that's what happens. And then people end up getting entrenched, in that state of dependency where they don't go out and find something else to do because they just, stick with the government check. And that check is offsetting the benefits of productivity because the government prints money to pay somebody to do nothing. So it's the government that would make the mistakes. It wouldn't be the free market innovating. It would be the government inflating. And
another thing they're not talking about now, I'm talking about AI, robotics, and money, is the future of crypto, right? The future of crypto is Web3. We're talking about programmable money here. It's all programmable money. This is what we're going to be paying these robots with, the AI and everything else. So, I mean, come on.
And getting in the way.
Looking forward, we're in a big year, 2024, election year. Obviously, the halving cycle, the debt restructuring all happens in the same year. What do you guys think the world looks like with a Biden victory? What does it look like with a Trump victory?
No different. In the market terms, no different.
You don't think the market will have a response at all to one or the other?
Won't give a shit. It's really driven by liquidity and flows. It's going to be... They're all doing the same game. So No, I don't think it makes a single bit of difference. I've not seen an election that has turned markets because, shock, somebody's come in. Donald Trump, huge shock. What did the market do? Sell off for exactly one evening. Brexit, huge shock. What did the market do? Sell off. Yeah, it just doesn't matter. Politics don't matter in the short run, but obviously they can change the structure of economies in the long run. But the market doesn't seem to concern itself with that when...
It's a really good point. I just want to quickly jump onto Bitcoin. It is about ready to get back to 72K. We waited all day. Back to 72K. Boom. Look at that. Creating a little bit of a cup and handle there after that Adam and Eve structure. Yeah. And China's up and ready to play, and that's what we're seeing right now is the European market and Asian markets are open. I'll get back into this real quick.
Liquidity seems to be the dominant factor that drives markets, and that's driven by central banks.
Do you think they're still going to be printing their way out of problems?
There is no choice.
Either one.
There is no choice. What are you going to do? You're going to bankrupt all the baby boomers, blow up all the banking system, because for what? Justice? The right answer is to blow it all up? Nobody's going to do that. It's insanity. They will never do that. So they will do absolutely everything within their power to try and not let that happen. And that, it goes back to what we've all been talking about, is however you define inflation. I don't think it's CPI inflation, it's asset price inflation via debasement is the game. Financial repression, let's call it that. That is the game. And they will do that. Now, Peter may be right. Maybe it ends up in hyperinflation. I would put a very low probability.
That's the worst case scenario. I don't know that that's where we're going. I mean,
no, and again, I would say that's the worst case scenario and possible. I don't know what probability.
A lot of economy experts are.
Yeah, that's what they're doing. They'll keep doing repression. Why not?
But in answer, it's not going to change the game. I mean, Trump's been president before. I mean, he didn't change the game then. He ran up the debt when he was president. I think on the margin, it's worse to reelect Biden than to put Trump back in office. But I don't think that Trump is going to, change what's going to happen. We're going to have a currency crisis. We're going to have a sovereign debt crisis. Whether Trump or Biden is in office, whether it happens during that 4-year term, again, I don't know. I mean, maybe they kick the can down the road and it happens.
It's a shame though when they're not talking about Bukele and his speech at CPAC. It would be really nice to see their take on that, since he basically called out the U.S. government for printing all this money and getting us in this hole that we're in, and the just like Argentina did when Milei was elected, completely from the ground up, just kind of like disassemble every branch of the government and just kind of like eliminate everything and start over. That's what Bukele was kind of saying is the best option for us to kind of start over.
Happens, on the watch of whoever replaces them. Because whoever wins, we know one thing, they can't run again, right? You only get to run twice. So if whoever wins is not going to be president in 2026. So maybe they get out of Dodge and maybe they don't. But I would think that assuming we had the collapse during the term of whoever wins, right? We have a crisis. I would just assume have Trump there than Biden. Trump has a greater probability of doing the right thing than Biden. Biden maybe has no chance of doing the right thing, and Trump maybe has a slim chance. So slim is better than none.
And doing the right thing in this case would be spending less at the government level.
Well, dramatic cut, right? They have to do the opposite.
I don't know. Try to spend a lot of money. I don't know. You can't say that.
Of every political instinct. Because what they want to do when the economy is weak.
And again, Trump didn't spend the money. It was the cabinet. It was just, yada, yada, yada government. It's never one political person, right? It's never, the president's just a puppet. It's a mouthpiece. Get over the illusion that we have choice in this country.
They want to try to stimulate it with more government. They want to run bigger deficits. They want to cut taxes. They want to print money. They have to do the opposite. They have to shrink government, cut spending. They may even have to raise taxes. I'd rather them just do it all from the spending side. But they got to cut spending. They got to let interest rates go up. They got to let banks fail. They got to let companies go bankrupt. They got to let people lose money. They got to allow a lot of painful things to happen to have a real recovery that is on the other side.
So, do you think? Is that what they should do? Do you think?
Yeah, of course. They have to do the right thing. It's like if you have a drug habit, stop taking drugs. Yeah, it's not going to be good. You're going to be in withdrawal for a while, but you got to get the stuff out of your system. You got to be healthy. We can't keep drugging ourselves up and then we die of an overdose. That's where, that's what hyperinflation is. It's the equivalent of a monetary overdose. You destroy the currency and then you destroy the economy. And so I want to avoid that. We need to restructure the economy in a sustainable path. It's not on that now. It's a house of cards. And I don't want to keep the house of cards going, knowing eventually it's going to collapse even worse. I want to let it collapse now so we can start replacing it with a structural
chaos,
a real house.
Dystopian future. Let's go,
So we
Peter
heard
Schiff.
clearly what you want to happen.
God.
What will happen? What do you think?
They're going to keep on printing until the dollar collapses. Now the question is, when the dollar
let's just
does
stop.
collapse,
Let's stop there a sec. So they're going to keep on printing. So given that information, what would you do? Investing.
I'm doing exactly what I'm doing now.
Peter Schiff for president.
But I'm hoping that they stop the presses at some point when it gets bad enough that they, because once it's so
then
bad,
all of your assets go down, right?
See, let me finish this point. Once it's so bad that everybody in power knows they're gone. Hey, there's no way I'm getting reelected with the economy this bad. Then maybe they'll do the right thing because they've run out of options, right? They'll do the right thing only after they've exhausted all the other possibilities. So we may be able to do the right thing and stop the presses, before the dollar goes to nothing. There is no graceful way out at this point. We've long passed that, right? There is no, pain-free solution here, You could hope that AI eases the pain, and maybe it does. Hopefully it will. That would be good.
And I take this differently. I'm like, if we have an observable behavior which is most likely to repeat, however ugly the situation is around us, we can actually help ourselves get out of this trap at individual level by investing correctly around this. This is what I strongly believe in. I think the world is truly screwed. But, as you pointed out, there is only one way they will deal with this. Armed with that information, that is like the magic bullet. This is everything behind this idea of the everything code, is if you know this to be what is going to happen, you can look into the future and you know what the hell to own.
Except every time they've done it before, the dollar hasn't collapsed because people have maintained confidence.
But if the dollar
in the
collapses,
system. If
our
the
assets
dollar
are going to go up.
collapses, it's very different. It's going to look very different than what you've seen in the last 20 years.
I don't know. Last time I checked, the Venezuelan stock market went up like a rocket ship. All I'm saying is,
but
Tom, you and I spoke about this when we first started speaking back in 2020. This is the life raft.
And don't forget, crypto is a worldwide monetary system. We don't sleep 24/7. We're talking about trading in China right now. Look. The dollar, if the dollar goes dunzo, it'd be a blip. It'd be a blip on the chart. Who knows how long we'll go sideways from it. Who knows? It might rally. This is what Bitcoin was created for. No one's talked about this all night. All night. This is what Bitcoin was created for. I swear, if we don't end on this, I am going to lose my mind. Satoshi Nakamoto, come on, 2008, housing crisis, printing of money, excess. This is why we're here. We're here because this little coin was created, and we're right back in the same saddle we were when I got out of high school. So This is what this is life now.
Right, the life raft is what saves people. It could be gold. I have no issue with that. It could be Bitcoin, it could be tech stocks, it could be whatever. You shouldn't be concerning yourself with any of this stuff, this apocalypse, because we know the outcome is financial repression and print more money. Right, so we just get to hop on the life raft and we avoid all of that. That's what I don't get about all of the doom arguments is, I get it, it's totally screwed, but it's so predictable because we all agree what they'll do.
Right, but the thing is, they've been able to do it and not precipitate a real crisis.
That only matters if we do a different thing in the face of what we've all said, too much debt, inflation's the only answer.
No, not a different thing. If we keep doing the same thing, eventually it's not going to turn out the way it has. The world is not going to accept it. The world is not going to believe. Our ability to stimulate with QE, with inflation, is predicated on the false belief that the Fed can shrink the balance sheet, withdraw the liquidity, normalize interest rates, we can pay off the debt. I mean, when the markets come to the unfortunate realization that that's not true, then the bottom drops out and we can't kick the can down the road anymore because there's no more road. And then we have to deal with the consequences in a way that we haven't had to deal with them in the past, right? We can't send out stimulus checks because they bounce, right? Or they don't buy anything.
Forget about the big picture, what they must do. What happens to humans in that level? You and I in investments and Tom, right?
The individual.
What is it? What happens, right? So let's play this out. And I've gone through this in great depth. Is when you play it out, if you go to a hyperinflation, he who owns assets wins. Fact. If you go to any of these,
you certainly lose a lot less. I mean,
the only way you do not win is if they do what you want the most, which is tighten policy so badly that you let the air out of everything.
Yeah.
Then we completely get nuked. And we are all poor.
What I want them to do, what I advocate that they do, is contrary to my strategy. Because I don't invest based on what I want, but based on what I expect. I expect them to do the wrong thing. And so that's how I invest it. But even if they do the right thing, I think I'll lose a lot less than everybody else, which means I might win. Because it's all relative.
Oh
so
my God, you're so contrarian.
If my portfolio goes down, but the things I want to buy go down even more, I'm wealthier. But yes, the best thing for my strategy is that they do the opposite of what I'm advising. But that's what I expect them to do. You know, you hope for the best, but you plan for the worst. I hope they don't do these mistakes, but I'm pretty sure they're going to make them. You know, that's just the most likely scenario.
I'd rather they didn't do what you want them to do, because everybody is going to lose their entire...
No, they're going to lose more if they do what I expect. Inflation is going to wipe out more people than honest default and restructuring.
Slower. It'll happen slower. You can take your pains fast or take it slowly. It's
yes,
all pain, right?
It
It's all
slower.
pain. It's
it
all
will
pain.
be slower. Yeah, it'll be a slower death, but it will be a more painful death.
It's all pain. I get that.
I have one last question for you, and it'll be quick. Over the next 6 months, where do you guys think the price of Bitcoin is going to be?
Well, I would guess lower, actually. It's gone up so much at this point. 6 months from now, my guess would be lower. It's about 60,000 now, right? 61,000. So I'd take the under for 6 months.
I'll take the over just on the historical pattern of election years, stuff like that. It tends to go up in a straight line. So, you know, my time horizon is not really 6 months, but generally speaking, in these election years, this kind of Bitcoin halving cycle, it tends to be higher. So significantly higher.
Significantly higher. So
Yeah.
not just higher.
No, I think
How much higher?
I think... I don't know, but, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if it's trading at 75,000 by July.
Here we are! We're already at 75K!
I wouldn't be surprised by that either. But
This was probably recorded a week or two ago when we were in the $60,000 range last week. So, damn, that's crazy. We're already there, pretty much. 73,000 today.
I also wouldn't be surprised if it's, 20,000 or less. So, I mean,
Gentlemen, I cannot thank you enough. I'm beyond grateful for the time that you gave all of us today to go through those ideas. I think it's really super useful. Hopefully this is round
Man,
one.
that was
To everybody
really
watching
damn
at
good.
home, if you haven't
Tom,
already, be sure to subscribe. And gentlemen, where should they connect with you?
Holy crap.
Easiest place to find me on Twitter at RaoulGMI. And if you want more of this kind of information, these kind of debates, realvision.com. In fact, there's realvision.com/impacts. It's free. Just sign up and start watching lots of incredible people. It's not my biases. Peter's been on, you've been on, everybody's been on, and we have some great long-form conversations. So, realvision.com.
Yeah, so for me, if you want to cash in some of your Bitcoin for actual gold, you can contact the reps at
God damn it, come on.
website.
Chill.
Again,
You did this whole thing just
take
for
your
that.
Bitcoin and exchange them for gold through BitPay.
Oh,
If
boy.
you have a larger portfolio, because again, I recommend that people invest. Not just save with gold, but invest in productive assets. I have an asset management company based here in Puerto Rico, Euro Pacific Asset Management. The website is europac.com, EUROPAC.com, so check us out. You can give us a call. There's a toll-free number on there. You can fill out a form and have a representative call you back and discuss the strategies. I have a new newsletter now that I'm writing at shiftsovereign.com. So
Holy crap,
that
dude.
website.
Holy
And,
crap.
sign up for my newsletter there. Just 1 million followers. It seems like it's taking a long time to confuse, so it's been difficult this last mile. Facebook, TikTok. I mean, we've been there for a while on my YouTube channel. But what's going on and how much time I have. But you can listen to Shift, Apple, iTunes, anywhere they have podcasts. You can listen.
Wow.
And I've got mutual funds too. So you can buy my funds at Schwab or Fidelity.
I'm going to add a couple more since Peter did some money. One is my asset management business, which is it's a fund of crypto hedge funds. We invest in the world's best crypto hedge funds. That's XPAM, EXPAAM, Exponential Age Asset Management. Also, all of my research I've been doing for 20 years, all of the stuff that I talk about comes from Global Macro Investor. That's the epicenter of my thinking. That's everything that I've done. So if anyone gets a chance, check out some of that stuff.
Definitely check it out.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Good
Until
stuff.
next time,
Good
my friends.
stuff.
Be legendary. Take care. Peace.
Damn,
to learn more about the
that
crypto.
was awesome. Oh man, I can't imagine. It would have been just a little better if they would have got Michael Saylor on there with Peter Schiff. Oof, the gloves would have had to come off. But yeah, just hearing them debate specifically on gold and investing in Bitcoin, more or less of the rest of the crypto assets too. I mean, there's just so much you could just talk about it, and so much that was missed. Again, the pure definition, the inception of Bitcoin, why it was created was for this particular event that we're about to go through. And I was so sad and disappointed that no one brought that up. It's such a huge thing, right? Especially when Raw Paula was really jumping in there about just the ideology and Peter Schiff calling it a cult and a religion and all the, sharing the good faith and yada yada yada. Yeah, and there's a reason why. I mean, we're kind of brainwashed by trauma. Oh, we just broke 72 again. Big things. We could touch the butt again at 73 here, and let's see about. Oh, we're almost at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's about 10 a.m. in China right now, and don't forget Hong Kong. Not mainland China, but Hong Kong is looking to try and become the crypto capital of the world, as well as Japan. And I got some news on Japan too. I was gonna save this till tomorrow, but man, I'm just I'm pumped watching this pump and watching that video tonight. Oh my god, it's a great debate. But yeah, there was a little news out of Japan yesterday. Basically, Going into how Japan successfully averts a recession as revised quarterly economic growth data shows improvement. And we got a little tease on Jasmine. Does that mean Jasmine go up? Yeah, and I even checked the assets. Not the assets, the global economies of the world. Ranked. Eight. Oh, well, there it is. Almost missed it. And Japan's back in the top 3, baby. Japan's back on top. So, if they can avert recession, and people say that, you know, the UK also went into recession about a few weeks ago, officially, and the growing narrative is that history tells that we are going into recession to follow UK, and typically about 5 to 6 months. Will this time be different? We got a lot of that question here in 2024. We'll see. As Raw Paul and Peter Schiff is really a doom and gloom kind of guy. He's really pushing that doomsday prepper narrative for gold. But yeah, if it were up to them, I'd say they're gonna avert it just like we always have. Kick the can down the road, make it someone else's problem. Wait for the boomers are dead, and let it be someone else's problem. Another generation. Yada yada yada. And yeah, as Bitcoin pumps to the moon. Oh man, crazy times we're in. Crazy times. Are you ready? I'm ready. Man, so much going on every single day. You can't make this stuff up. Can't make it up. And everyone, of course, jumping on the news. There's MicroStrategy's Michael Saylor, of course, on Yahoo Finance today.
Declines for Bitcoin today. MicroStrategy shares, well, they're higher. TD Cowen raising its price target on the stock to $1,560. That's $1,560 after MicroStrategy increased its Bitcoin holdings by another 12,000 Bitcoin. The total holdings about 205,000 now. Joining me now, MicroStrategy Executive Chairman Michael Saylor. Michael, it's good to see you. It's been a little while.
Thanks for having me, Julie.
So I want to start. I know that you're bullish on Bitcoin. I think everyone knows by now that you see a long-term store of value in Bitcoin. And you have said that you see it as digital property as opposed to thinking of it as a digital currency. So if you could help me understand, as you add more to the company's balance sheet, what the sort of end game is for those holdings on MicroStrategy's
we all want to know.
Yeah, well, we think Bitcoin is the highest form of property. It's the apex property in the world, and it's the best investment asset. So the end game is to acquire more Bitcoin. Whoever gets the most Bitcoin wins.
Well,
there is no other end game.
But Michael, I guess what I'm trying to understand is, so if I think of it as digital property, and I think of analogies, right? I think of a real estate company that buys property and holds on to other kinds of property. They may not be the apex, but whatever kinds of property. I think of an asset manager that buys all kinds of different assets. Eventually, they sell those assets in order to make profits. But I don't think that is your end game, right? You're not planning to sell the Bitcoin at any point. So kind of what is the purpose of it over time?
Well, let's keep in mind the fundamental principle. What's the use case of Bitcoin? It's capital preservation. So if you have $1 billion and you live in South America, or you live in Asia, or you live in Africa, and you want the capital to last for 100 years, you're not going to want to buy a $1 billion company or a $1 billion building or $1 billion of land in any place in Africa. You're going to have to find some other form of property that you can hold for a long period of time. Let's take New York City. Developers of New York City in
We've gone
1776
through this
didn't
so
have
many
an
times. I don't wanna drag it out again, but yeah, we are doing the same thing every day. Every day we're talking about crypto. Every day the news is covering crypto. As we go further and further into this cycle. And we just started. Plan B put out a crazy thing. I think it was today. This morning, actually, I think. Yeah, he put this out. And very bullish. Very bullish. First 3 halvings were not priced in. And here we are now. If it's anything like last time, what is that there? A big number. That's like 500K, right? Yeah, something like that. 450,000. I mean, possible. Samson Mouse still out there tooting $1 million Bitcoin this year now. This year. And Samson Mao, I'm telling you, do not fade him. Do not fade the great Samson Mao. I think he knows a lot about what's going on in the world economic stage than any of us have any clue about. He is the right-hand man for so many countries when it comes to its global adoption of Bitcoin and other assets. I watched another video of him today while I was at work, listening to him talk about, yeah, basically the possible, the biggest problem. I think it was today, 3 weeks ago. Yeah, was it this one? $1 million. That was 2 months ago. He's been talking about this for a long time. But he's really pushing that to this week. I mean, this year is going to be the $1 million year. 9 hours ago, this one here. Very, very entertaining. And yeah, he basically pushes the fact that, you know, this is going to be the big crunch. That was another thing that Peter Schiff and Rob Paul didn't talk about. This is going to be the year where Bitcoin is truly going to be scarcer than gold when it comes to the amount of produced Bitcoin in circulation versus actual gold. And so, yeah, these are huge things that are happening right now. We're going to have a liquidity crisis. And that's what Samson Mao also truly believes. That's why he's pushing this $1 million narrative. Is it possible? Is it possible we're not bullish enough? That's the main question. I think it's possible we're not bullish enough. Because these institutions have changed the game. And I say it every day since the ETF launch. The ETFs have been putting us on shelves. Shelves. Higher liquidity, higher volume, higher volumes. Come in, net inflows, these ETFs. 500 on average daily price action, $666 daily price action, $1,000. It's going to end up being $1,000 daily price action. When is the Bitcoin going to start, dissipating? Right? When are the inflows going to stop? That's the big question. And the thing is, we just started in America. We just started the ETFs in America. It's only been not even really 2 months yet. Well, I think this week it'll be officially 2 months by the end of this week. Trading sessions, though, I don't think so. Maybe next week will be officially 2 months of trading sessions. But we have the halving in 38 days. There's so many factors. So many variables, so many key indicators, and then the rest of the world getting in as well. We don't have retail even waking up yet. I haven't got phone calls from my parents or my loved ones, my family, my friends. Should I get in now? Should I get in now? Should we? The real answer was, you should have got in last year or 2 years ago. Help, 6 months ago, 4 months ago. Yeah, but there's still upward potential right here. I mean, we're probably gonna hit true price discovery here in the next few weeks. Probably somewhere between a $80,000 to $90,000 Bitcoin, possibly even 100,000 before the halving. We have no clue. My original assessment was 75K. I went in this thinking, we started the ETF launch at 40,000. We were gonna get to about 75K by halving. To me, that made sense. Now, anything goes. I mean, we're talking about $100,000 Bitcoin either before the halving, after the halving. It doesn't even matter at this point. June, July, we could be sitting at a $200,000 Bitcoin. It would not surprise me either way. It really depends on how the world's going to play around this. Fairly or unfairly, if we're going to have market manipulation, or we're going to have events that pop up to scare the market, wars, maybe government collapses and parts of the world, maybe more terrorist attacks. We could have a lot of different scenarios at play that could really change or manipulate price action. But I digress. That anything is possible. That's why you can't let your dreams be dreams, and you gotta buy Bitcoin, right? What I say here every night, and speaking of every night, I think tomorrow is another night. I gotta call it. Bitcoin's making its way back up to 72. By tomorrow morning, who knows? Tomorrow morning we could wake up to another $73,000 Bitcoin. We had it this morning. I believe, no, it was like yesterday afternoon. Yeah, we had it this morning. We had it at 10 a.m. We struck back at 73K and fell down with the CPI. Another reason why we are held back by our government lords, right? Anywho, I'm gonna call it a night. Stay frosty, keep stacking sats, and remember why we're in on this. We're in here to fight for our financial freedom and stop the corruption of the markets and get ahead, right? It's all about maintaining your wealth. All right, please like and subscribe, do all the things down below. I will catch you guys again tomorrow. Peace. Have a good night. Later.